Welcome to John Dixon and Associates Weekly Podcast. My name's Drew Dixon. I'm here with Scott Benson. It's the third week of January. Just got done celebrating Martin Luther King Day, and we're glad you're joining us today. Be sure to stick around to the end because Scott will have us a trivia question where you can win a John Dixon and Associates coffee mug. We'll ship it to you. Today, Scott, tell them a little bit about what we're going to do today.
Well, so we get a lot of questions that come in, and we thought that we may even do this routinely, but today we're going to answer some questions that come in. We're going to call it Ask The Auctioneer, and we just thought we'd go through some questions and answer them, and if other people have questions that they want to email in, you can send them in to scott@johndixon.com, drew@johndixon.com, and we'll get your questions answered on the podcast.
Yeah, we hope to do this as a monthly addition to our podcast things. A lot of times we're talking about what the properties we got coming up. We do go into some describing the auction processes. But today we're going to answer some questions that people have sent in over the past few weeks and get them answered for.
And probably 85% of all of our questions are the same ones. So this may be a good venue for us to just address a lot of the questions that we get, same ones. Also, we have an auction coming up February 9th.
That's right, February 9th at 2 o'clock. It'll be simulcast, of course. The live event will take place at the Home to Suites at Delk Road and I-75 here in Marietta. It'll be streaming online for those of you that are out of town or just for some reason or another can't make it to the auction. We've got a ton of great properties from commercial building, nice commercial buildings selling absolute in Mississippi.
Already gotten calls on that. Signs are already up on these properties.
Another commercial building on 10 acres up in Abbeville, South Carolina. Several residential lots in and around Atlanta. So there's a little bit for everyone. So go to our website, johndixon.com. Check out what we got coming up. We'll be putting up additional information as we get it.
One of the suggestions that we've got is that because we're on camera now doing these podcasts, that we might ought to look into wearing some makeup.
You know, that has come up.
Yeah.
I've also been advised to go with vertical stripes.
Vertical stripes, yeah. Horizontal stripes,
yes. It shows my width.
Slimming.
A little too much.
Vertical is slimming.
Black and vertical.
Yep. Well, let's get to the question. So
let them rip.
Troy from Birmingham, Alabama, writes, I have sold several properties over the years with your company, but I was, only comfortable with selling the properties with a reserve price. I now have a property that I'm considering selling absolute. What's your advice?
Well, we get this question a lot. Most of the time people say, look, I don't want to sell it absolute because what if it brings $1? Well, I've been in and around the auction business since the 70s, and I've never seen it happen yet. But it's understandable for people who aren't familiar with the auction process. Our specialty is our marketing. We get it in front of people who are looking to buy. We have educated buyers that know what absolute and reserve means. A lot of our buyers, if it doesn't say absolute, they're thinking, well, they're just going to see what it's worth. They know that if the word absolute's there, that day is the only day they're going to have to be available to buy that property. Tomorrow is going to be too late. It increases urgency, and 9 times out of 10, it brings more than it would if it was with reserve. You say, well, how do you know that? You can't sell them both the same way. Well, we've sold several properties twice for, someone will buy something at an auction, turn around and sell it again with us, to flip it later. And, one will be reserve, one absolute. And 9 times out of 10, the absolute is going to bring more just because it increases the urgency.
That's right. And also, I can see where it could be a little bit scary, but folks that sell with us all the time, they always sell absolute. And another thing to remember is that we do not release the reserve price to the public. The reserve price is really between us and the seller. So no one knows what the reserve price is, and that can be a real hindrance. They don't know if it's $50,000 or $1,000,000 reserve. And I've had many occasions where a seller will sell one property with a reserve. They think that's the good property, and a property that's not quite worth as much, sell that absolute. The absolute always brings more money, it seems like.
That's right.
So we want you to feel comfortable with what you're doing. We're going to give you our best advice on what's going to bring the most money. But I think we've covered the difference between reserve and absolute.
When it comes to auctions, it's psychology that gets it sold. People knowing they're going to be able to sign that contract when the auction's over. Well, thank you, Troy.
So Tom from Johns Creek, he writes in and says, I see your auction signs around town all the time. How much will it cost me to include my property in your next auction? It's a good question.
That is, and it varies. It's more or less a property by property figure. You know, we've started these multi-seller auctions years ago, and the name tells what type of auction it is. It has multiple sellers. You know, a standalone auction can cost anywhere from 15 to 1,000 up. And you know, you got a lot, a little residential lot that may be worth 10,000. You aren't going to spend 10 to 15 to get it sold. It doesn't make sense. And so many people have used to call us and say, look, we can't afford to do an auction, but how can you sell this for us? So we put this auction into place where we pro rata.
Yep.
Is that a word?
It is.
The marketing fee between the different sellers, and they all share in it and take advantage of a nationwide large marketing campaign.
That's right. So we'll do a standalone auction. We do them routinely. You're going to the advantage of a standalone is you're going to get all of the buyers in the room are going to be bidding on only your property. The downside of a standalone auction is that you're bearing the entire cost of the marketing fee of that auction. So we started doing multi-seller auctions. We'll combine properties from a bank or from a divorce or from an estate. We combine them into one auction. We'll put together an overall budget of what that auction could be and what that auction cost is to get the word out on the marketing. And you're going to pay, like you said, the pro rata share or your fraction of what your property is. You'll bear that cost, and then we have a sale.
And typically, a range is from $500 for just a small little lot up to, you know, 5,000 or more, depending on the property and depending on the marketing that's going to be for that property. For instance, we may have a large commercial building that needs some more attention. We think that it should be advertised more, you know, in some newspapers. Let's say it's up in
USA Today, Wall Street Journal.
Right.
We have the ability to advertise in all of those publications.
That's right. A nice commercial building in New York. Well, you know, we don't want it to just be stuck in this multi-seller and be just another property. We're going to do some intense advertising just on it, so it's going to cost a little more to put it in those New York newspapers and specially designed ads just for that property.
USA
Today. Great question.
Yep. All right, James from Columbia, South Carolina writes in, my house has been listed for 6 months with little to no activity with the real estate agent. At what point should I consider auctions as a way to go? That's a good question.
That is. We love working with real estate agents. Of course, if there's an active listing, we aren't, you know, we can't put our license at risk to jump in there while it's actively listed, unless that real estate agent wants to work with us. However, if the listing is expired and you want to see what we think it'll bring, call us, let us know.
Well, and I think this question really drills down to what part of our message is. Sometimes things just, you put a listing sign on a property and there's just not much movement. You put an auction sign on that same property and the phones will start ringing that day. We'll see that. And so auctions can be a good tool for real estate agents. They can come to us with properties that they just, for whatever reason, haven't moved. People think they're getting a great deal with auctions. Whether that's true or not remains to be seen. But people think they're getting a great deal. That's why it generates so much interest. And we still include those real estate agents on those houses. And we're going to pay the real estate agent, not the seller. We will, to include them. So we want to keep real estate agents involved, especially with improved properties. And we've had some good relationships with agents. A lot of real estate agents are making some pretty good money with us.
That's right. That's right.
So that's a fantastic question. But I would say it depends on how bad you want to sell it. If you want to sell it pretty bad, you stick an auction sign on that property and you're going to get calls.
That's right. Gets them off the fence.
Sean in Lilburn writes, should I come to your next auction in person? You may know who this person is. Should I come to your next auction in person or should I bid on it online? Is there an advantage either way?
Great question. We get that a lot. We always recommend, if you've never been to one of our auctions, you definitely need to come to it to see how the process works. And also during the auction, I'm the auctioneer, and let's say we're selling something you're interested in, but you're at home online and your computer goes down.
It happens.
You're out of luck.
Yep.
You're out of luck. And during the auction, I can't see you. I don't know if you're about to bid. When I deem the bidding to be over, I'm going to say sold. And too many times someone will bid as I say sold, and it's too late. I've already identified a high bidder. If you're there in person, I can see you. You can tell me, hold up just a second. Let me make sure this is what I want to do.
Yep.
Let me talk to my partner here, whatever the case may be. But I have that personal, identification of you, and we can slow it down. You get all your questions answered. And we always recommend come in person if you can.
I think the way that I've always looked at it is that we provide online bidding as a service. I always recommend if you can possibly be there. Now, if you're out in California or you're in another country, you're not going to be able to be there in person. But if you can, I would be there in person to bid live. But we do offer it as a service. There's also a delay. Your computer may not cut off, but there's a delay. And it could be from our internet in the hotel. It could be your internet. It could be our computer, your computer. We try our best, but there's always a delay. And I would say every other auction, somebody bids a second too late. And so to avoid any of those problems and mishaps, if it's a property that you're really interested in, I'd be there in person.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean. And then Melinda from Lawrenceville, she emailed in and said, do you only sell properties that are distressed or properties that have been foreclosed on?
Well, Melinda, that changes with the times. Before COVID and the lockdown, we sold quite a bit, predominantly for banks that had taken properties back that they had foreclosed on. But there hadn't been a foreclosure to any amount by any banks since COVID started for the last couple of years.
Been a moratorium on that.
That's right. So all we've been selling, 90% of what we're selling is for individuals. People watch these flip your property show. I'm sure you've seen them on the TV. This is how they do it. They'll have relationships with REITs or banks that, a property come back, and before they call us, they'll You know, they'll buy up the property for pennies on the dollar at a tax sale or something of that nature, call us to flip it, and that's what they do now.
Well, I could tell what the follow-up question would be. Melinda didn't write it, but I could tell what the follow-up is. Well, why would I sell at auction? Well, auction's not going to be for everyone to sell real estate, but if you want to sell something fast, you want to sell it as is, you have no contingencies, you want a 30-day close, auction is the only way that you can do that. So a lot of people call us and they just want to get something off their books, they want to get rid of it. Auction's a great way to do that.
That's right. That's right. Great question, Melinda.
Well, that's it for the questions, so we can roll into the trivia question.
Sure, and
part
if
of
you
it.
have any more, please send them to us. We love doing this, so the more questions, the better. All right, what we got?
So trivia question today. So if you know the answer or think you know, just want to guess, send me an email at scott@johndixon.com. If your answer is correct, include your contact information on the email, and we'll send you out a John Dixon Associates limited edition coffee mug.
Now, my brother-in-law keeps sending in the answers, and I
Well,
messed up one time.
Yeah.
And didn't say family could not win this.
Well, I didn't say it
Please
today.
stress it.
So I would say employees, former employees, and also family members of employees or former employees are not eligible to win this. I'm sorry.
That's
They're just
right.
not.
Sean, you've got a set of
Yeah.
them now.
Edwin, you know who you are. Trivia question. Where were fortune cookies invented? And I'll tell you, I'll give you a hint. It's inside this country.
Oh, come on.
Not internationally. So write me back, you know it's in the United States, but write me back what city fortune cookies were invented, and we'll get you out a John Dixon Associates coffee mug.
Interesting question. Thank you,
Yeah.
Scott. Well, thank y'all for joining us this week. We'll be back next week. Be sure to check out our February 9th auction coming up. Details are on our website at johndixon.com. Give us a call at the office. It's 770-425-1141. Email either one of us, drew@johndixon.com or scott@johndixon.com. We just want to hear from you. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch you next week.